In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the mental ray wave texture. So the wave texture could be found together with all the other mental ray textures. If we just scroll down toward the bottom, we should find the mental ray wave. Alright, so let's go ahead and just scroll back a little bit. Now, just like all the other mental ray textures, this node is not able to work on its own, so we need to make sure we add in the texture vector. Now, we'll also need to use the the texture remap. In addition to that, so let's first take the texture remap and we'll plug it into the coordinates of this wave node. And now let's take the texture vector and we'll plug it into the input of our remap node. It'll make sense here in just a moment why we need to do this. So to start with, we really have just a few very basic attributes that are going to be responsible for the look of this wave. So we have the amplitude x, which will control the density in the x-axis. We have the same thing that controls the density in the y-axis. And then we have the same thing that controls the amplitude in the z-axis. So really just a very simple shaders that we have here. And then finally we have the offset, which will control how fast we actually taper off from this white to the black color. So really, those are all the attributes that are present in this wave node. Now, the way that we start to make this look a little bit more like waves is to begin introducing some remap. So let's start to increase the repeating on this. So let's give this something like 10 repeats. And now you can start to see the result. This is probably a little bit too high to be able to see properly. So you can maybe start with something like 3 repeats. And now if we wanted to be able to adjust this, we can always come back and now start to adjust these different wave parameters until we start to get something that's a little bit more desirable. Alright, now if we wanted to begin actually animating this and starting to make this look a little bit more like waves, we could come back to our remap node and either start to increase the amount of remapping that happens. We can adjust any of these sliders or any of these numbers by just pressing and holding the control key on our keyboard, and then you can left mouse drag to start to basically use these like sliders. So if I left mouse drag, it'll drag it and start to increase these values relatively slowly. If I control middle click, you can see it'll increase those values a little bit faster. If I control right click, it'll start to increase those values very quickly. So I can start to introduce things like the offset. You can see how that will basically cycle these waves on and off the visible area of this texture. We can do the same thing vertically. We can start to introduce a little bit more variation if we were to use the alternate functions, which will alternate every time this texture repeats. So this is how we can start to get some crisscrossing patterns, both horizontally and vertically. So that's really just a look at how we can start to utilize some of the values that can be found in this mental ray wave texture.